Good evening. The chair sees a quorum. I'll now call to order the April 22nd meeting of the Indianapolis Public Library Board of Trustees. Ms. Gilbert, please call the roll.
Yes, Mr. Biederman.
Present.
And do we have Mr. Lane?
Yes, present.
Thank you, Stephen. Dr. Murtada?
Present.
Dr. Palacio?
Present.
Dr. Payne?
Present.
Ms. Tribble?
Present.
And Dr. White?
Present.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. The chair recognizes a quorum. Welcome, everyone, to the April meeting of the Indianapolis Public Library Board of Trustees. I'm Hope Tribble and honored to serve as your board president. Good evening to our guests and to those watching us on live stream, as well as our board member who is attending virtually. We appreciate everyone for taking the time to join us this evening. I want to thank the team at the Eagle Branch for their gracious hosting of us today. We'll hear more about the branch in a moment from their branch manager. But one fact about their history that I found interesting was that Eagle started as a small storefront branch in a shopping center. And what a transformation to this lovely facility. And speaking of another major transformation from a former shopping center, is the Glendale branch. On March 30th, we were happy and excited to reopen the Glendale branch in a new, beautiful, and spacious home in a park-like setting. We have to take a moment to thank everyone who had a hand in the planning, building, moving, and getting ready for this new branch. The grand opening event was a special day. It was underscored by community leaders, educators, and people of all ages from the neighborhood who were part of the celebration. So if you haven't already, please visit the branch and thank the dedicated staff for opening what will be a great new chapter in this popular branch. Glendale, like our other locations, is at the center of its neighborhoods and provides a vibrant place to learn, relax, and gather. And we know IndyPL isn't just a place to get books. It's a hub to culture, creativity, and community, and that includes musical performances designed for everyone. And just like our books, our musical performances and concerts are educational, inspirational, and they bring people together. Yesterday, the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra's Teddy Bear concert at Central Library was attended by 150 patrons. Looking ahead, our performance lineup will feature diverse acts from classical guitarist Brad Conroy to live mariachi dancers. And like everything we do, our events are free and open to all. You can check out the calendar at ndpl.org/calendar. So please let me invite our guest, Eagle Branch Manager, Ms. Bethany Allison. I'll ask her to step forward, and I'll let you know that Eagle Branch was my library in high school, but when I was in high school, it was like tucked in somewhere behind Lafayette Road and 30...
Lowry?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's quite different.
Quite different.
But it was very nice back then. So we're glad to have you, Ms. Allison, and welcome your report.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Good evening, President Tribble, members of the Library Board, and other guests. My name is Bethany Allison, and I've been the branch manager here at the Eagle Branch for 2 years. I'm excited to share with you a little bit more about our vibrant community, dedicated staff, and community partners. The Eagle Branch, as we've mentioned, has been located here in this beautiful new facility since June of 2019. We are looking forward to celebrating 5 years here on Saturday, June 1st, when we also kick off the 2024 summer reading program. On top of our Eagle staff team, who are all pictured here over on the screen, we are also happy to be hosting 4 visiting staff members this year from the Pike and Nora branches while they're closed, so we're happy to have some extra help. Also pictured are Nick Terrio and Faith Zettler, who are floaters or substitutes for the West Region, and we appreciate all of their help as well. We also currently have one staff member who speaks Spanish, and that's a huge asset in our neighborhood, which I'll get into a little bit more later. Additionally, we have 5 regular volunteers who assist with the pick list and other collection development tasks, and we are so lucky to have a strong group of volunteers. The Eagle Branch serves a diverse community with patrons from all over the world. We receive a high number of requests for English classes and in turn have a strong partnership with the Immigrant Welcome Center. They teach a class here twice a week called Pathway to Literacy, which is geared towards immigrants who have low literacy skills in their native language. We have recently enhanced our English language learning section with assistance from Olanike Olaniyi, who is our selector for the World Language Department. She's been a huge asset and a huge help with helping us order more materials that are relevant to our patrons. The major languages spoken here by our patrons are Spanish, French, Haitian Creole, Pashto, and Arabic. We promote Mango Languages, which is one of NDPL's many free online resources, and we were a pilot branch for the new language line service. The staff have been getting more comfortable with the language line, and it's been a huge help in communicating with patrons. There have been a few bumps along the road, but we've all figured it out, and it's been a good opportunity to learn together with the patrons. We also have worked closely with Yana McGraw and her social work interns to help connect patrons with necessary services. The Eagle Branch is one of the busiest printing and copying branches here in the system, and at the beginning of 2024, we launched a weekly career and computer help center to provide more one-on-one assistance to patrons with job searching, as well as digital literacy skills utilizing the new North Star Digital Literacy Program. Previously, we had only been hosting the Career Center bi-weekly, but with more consistent offering, we've had more consistent patrons showing up. We're regularly getting 5 to 6 people every week. And because of that, we're now working with Wendy Johnson to line up some volunteer support for that program. So we've had good success so far in 2024. Additionally, the demand for private study rooms is very high, from students studying, tutoring sessions, business meetings, and more. There is even an Eritrean group that utilizes the study room every Saturday morning to help with their community and their immigration paperwork needs. So we've enjoyed getting to know them. Finally, we visit 6 local daycares, 1 autism center, the kindergarten classes at IPS School 79 on a monthly basis for outreach story time. We also regularly attend the Eagledale Neighborhood Association meetings, and we've got a few folks from the community here tonight, so we're really happy to have that strong partnership. We also attend as many community council meetings at IPS 107 and IPS 109 and table at as many family events that we can. The highlight last year was the Enlace Academy trunk or treat. That was fun. Lots of costumes. We didn't have enough candy, but we had some books, so it was all good. And then these last 2 slides just have lots of photos of various programs here at the branch. We provide a variety of programming, including a very popular Tuesday evening pajama story time, teen Dungeons and Dragons, an adult book club, and in May, we're going to start a 19-week session of yoga and meditation in partnership with the Indie Community Yoga Group. So we're really excited for that. This is also our first year as a seed library, and I found out today that we are currently the branch with the highest number of seeds circulating, with a grand total so far of 5,586 seed packets. So that was really exciting news. People are really enjoying that. I think you probably all noticed it on your way in, but that's been really popular, and I think the Eagle community will all have thriving gardens this summer, hopefully. And finally, the Eagle staff are always finding creative ways to engage with our patrons, and currently a community Sudoku board is a very popular offering. We also have an ongoing staff picks book display, and we had a March Madness picture book bracket that the patrons enjoyed voting on, and the winning book was Have You Seen My Invisible Dragon by Helen Yoon, so that was fun. But we look forward to continuing to serve the community, and we always enjoy learning more about our neighbors. And now I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Allison. Are there questions?
It's always been a pleasure to come over here, and thank you. Every time I've come, you host this. Can you say a little bit more about the demand for the computer usage? I think every branch is having more and more of that as a demand.
Yes, we have a lot of computer usage here. We help a lot of people with immigration paperwork, teaching the basic literacy skills. That North Star Digital Literacy Program has been very helpful because once we get patrons set up with it, it's a self-paced learning. They take an assessment and then they get tutorials based on their level of computer knowledge. So that's been really good.
So it's one staff person that's Spanish-speaking, right?
Yes.
So how do they help the individuals with the computer usage? Is that what frequently is their responsibility?
Well, so it's Hope McCune, and she is one of our, she's our library assistant 3, and she's been here in the branch for, I think, almost 30 years. I think she just hit 30 this past year, and so she's primarily at the circulation desk, but if we do need assistance, we can pull her over to help out. But the language line has also been really helpful.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. But yeah, also the Career and Computer Center program, people really want one-on-one assistance, and we're currently staffing it with 2 people for that whole entire 2-hour block, but that's still not enough because most of the people coming for that program really need a lot of help. So we're hoping to line up some volunteers who can help out with that.
Great.
I just want to thank you for your partnerships with IPS schools. I'm sure that encourages the children to do more reading and to use the library.
It does.
So thank you.
We enjoy that. And a year or so ago, I was at a community council meeting at one of the schools and ran into one of our little patrons in the office, and he looked at me like, "Who are you and why are you here? Why are you not at the library?" And then I said, "Oh, I know Mr. McMahon, the principal." And so now every time he comes in here, he's, thinking, "Oh, my principal, I better be on my best behavior." So we are very happy to have a close connection with them, and I think are actually attending a community day there tomorrow at Jonathan Jennings.
Nice. Dr. Palacio?
Hello. So I wanted to also ask about the facilities itself. It's been a newer one, and it's a LEED. What is it?
Silver, I believe.
Silver. Could you talk a little bit more about how this is helping with the environment?
Yeah, so the car charging stations outside are very popular. We have people calling on a weekly basis asking if they're working. For a while, one of the stations was down, and that's not something we see people using necessarily because it's outside of the building, but that is getting a lot of use. We've got our screen that shares all the information about the solar energy because we have solar panels up on the roof.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Any further questions? Mr. Lane, did you have any questions? I can't see you, so.
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allison.
You're welcome.
That was great. Next on our agenda is a presentation on immigrant programming by Ms. Sakura Fuqua. Please come forward. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Sakura Fuqua. I'm the Immigrant Outreach Program Specialist in the Programming Department at NDPO. I'm excited to be here for many reasons. One of those reasons being Eagle is my home branch. The second is we are discussing immigrant outreach and programming in my home community, the international marketplace that represents many cultures. And third, we have many partners that came out to support this evening, which means the world, but you'll hear a little bit from them later during public comment. Okay. As of 2021, there are approximately 96,000 foreign-born residents living in Marion County. The countries represented on the map are not an exhaustive list, but you can see that NDPL serves immigrants from at least 5 of the 7 continents from 32 countries. As illustrated, there are many immigrants groups to connect with, and the most effective way to do that is through being present within the communities. One way that we do that is through tabling and supporting events at schools or events that our partners host. The branches and our outreach department play an important role in connecting the immigrant communities to NDPL, and I appreciate the work that they do. This is a chance to see who lives in Marion County on the grassroots level. Conversations with people who visit the table are a chance to hear their voices and share information. Through these interactions, we can glean programming ideas that support our neighbors. Another way to connect with community is through meeting organizations and leaders, which serve as a bridge to these communities and NDPL. Since they work with immigrant populations daily, they are a great resource, and we learn about they're a great resource, and they act as advisors to us. In addition, this is a chance for us to be able to share what we offer at NDPL. On the other hand, there are organizations interested in learning about the immigrant populations that live here. So I'm proud that we can be a community connector and share what we've learned through our work at NDPL. Before I share about some of the programs that we offer, I just want to thank the Library Foundation. None of these programs would be we would be able to offer without their support, but also they take a lot of time and care in understanding exactly who we're serving and how we can best serve our community. This spring has been a busy time for programming. Tonight I'll share some of the new programs that we have hosted this spring. We have 5 total. Sacred Friendship discussions organized by the Greater Indianapolis Multi-Faith Alliance. This invited faith leaders and patrons to discuss what multi-faith means to them. Then we hosted the Lunar New Year in collaboration with the Indiana Association of Chinese Americans. We also had our Galagatza Festival with Arte Mexicano in Indiana, featuring Oaxacan culture and their traditions. We are also excited to share that we have created international display kits for the branches to check out. And this year, a program that I'm excited about is Meet Your Neighbor. It is a series that we started with Exodus Refugee Immigration. And this highlights why immigrants are here, some of the challenges that they face when they come to Indiana, and how the community can help. We also have Meet Your Neighbor programs focusing on specific populations such as the Haitian, Afghan, and Congolese, facilitated by community leaders. So one of the last new programs I'd like to share is Chica's Fit Spanish-English Exercise Program, which started last winter. We wanted to create a space for seniors to have access to physical activity during the winter months, but to build intercultural environment. And one more program, not new, but we started last year, which highlights and amplifies language access, is a multilingual computer classes at Michigan Road. Although the main focus is learning about computers and programs, this class also considers the needs of multilingual learner who can think in multiple languages. We are extremely fortunate to have an instructor, Masange Birigea, who is proficient in Swahili, French, English, and Kinyarwanda. So he's able to communicate with different African communities, Haitians, and even English speakers. This class is conducted in a group of 5 or 6 to be able to assist everyone effectively. Okay, so in the fall, in addition to the programs that we already have, we'd like to add more countries to Meet Your Neighbor to inform the community. We would also like to add financial literacy classes in Spanish and multilingual in French, Kenya, Rwanda, Swahili, and English. And lastly, we would like to add Spanish computer classes. So I would like to also highlight other programs and initiatives that are being hosted and organized throughout the NDPL system by branches and staff members. We have the Seed Library, which offers specialty seeds that are utilized among different countries and reflect the immigrants who live in Indianapolis, and that is organized by Jill Edwards. We also have the Latin Cultural Committee, who supports the Latinx population in Marion County by attending tabling events and community events, creating partnerships, and creating opportunities to spotlight our Spanish language resources and materials around the system. We had U.S. citizenship class at Hawville in partnership with the Immigrant Welcome Center, and in the fall, we will have U.S. citizenship classes at West Perry with the Burmese American Community Institute. Don't worry, I'm almost done. There will be criminal expungements at Central, catering to the Spanish and English patrons that we have, and this is spearheaded by Ryan Donnelly and the Indiana Bar Association. And of course, you know, bilingual story times, which we had in Spanish and Ukrainian, planned by Jessica Neeb-Smith. And then lastly, we have the Indiana Health Coverage and College Help and Success workshops for Spanish speakers last March, which was organized by our social work department. So in closing, I would like to share trends that I've observed in the last 2 years that I've been with NDPL that illustrate deepened community engagement and how NDPL is connected to the globe. First, we are growing in volunteers, English speakers and non-English speakers, and that's thanks to Wendy Johnson, our volunteer resources supervisor. And I'm excited about this because our volunteers really enhance the quality of service that we can offer our patrons. Number two, world events that we hear about in the media regarding migrants coming to the U.S. are arriving at the NDPL doorstep. For example, in the last few months, we had Venezuelans and Haitians who have escaped humanitarian crises, and they're visiting Central and other branches around the system to start their lives here in Indianapolis. These events may sound distant, but in reality, we are already serving these patrons. Number three are local to global impacts. On the local level, we have our presenters who are specialized in areas and can share their knowledge with our patrons and help them pursue their goals. On the national or global level, partners are being recognized for their work with the library, and that's thanks to social media. An example of this is through our Iran and Revolt exhibit that we had last January. After the exhibit was over, they were invited to Toronto to host an exhibit. And they also, Parisa and Hassan, who organized this exhibit, also had a free film screening last year and were invited to Las Vegas to have a film screening there. Another example is from English Conversation Circle. Our virtual conversation circles. We have patrons from Marion County, from surrounding counties, but we also have people nationally and internationally attend, creating a global community. Patron, number four, we have patron crossover from program to program. This year, I have observed more patrons attending different programs that may be out of their comfort zone, and this may seem like a small victory, but this is a challenge that I've learned other partners have experienced and also working to overcome. Number five, reoccurring questions or comments spawn ideas for programs or confirm that existing programs are relevant. Some of these questions are from patrons: where can I find an English class? Confirming that our Pathway to Literacy and our English Conversation Circles are still relevant today, and English Conversation Circles started about 10 years ago. Other questions might come from partners, and that's who lives in Indianapolis, and that gave us the idea for Meet Your Neighbor. Comments that I've heard, especially through international festivals, and this is a paraphrase, but it's wonderful to see my culture represented in a beautiful place, reinforcing that it is important to represent cultures appropriately with partners who know best. In addition, our events department plays an integral role in helping us to ensure that we are representing cultures respectfully by taking the time to understand what details are involved for implementation. Okay, well, this concludes my presentation, but I hope I was able to illustrate today that it really takes a village to be able to support our immigrant neighbors. From our branches, foundation, all NDPL branches, individual staff and community members, and our partners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really great system-wide work. And it's also a great example of the delivery on our mission and vision. So thank you for that. Are there questions from the board?
I had two quick questions. One, you brought up financial literacy. Are you partnering with any banks? They seem like they just love to do financial literacy all the time.
Well, the bank that we are partnering with for Spanish is, or it's a credit union, was called North Star, and they just changed last week. And I'm sorry, I don't have the name, but I can find it. But yes, it was North Star Community, or North Park Community.
Will that be in different languages as well?
So we have one in Spanish, which they do have many Spanish speakers who can execute the program. But then also we have Masange here who's doing our computer classes, who has certification in teaching financial literacy. So he will conduct the multilingual in Kinyarwanda, French, Swahili, and English.
That's awesome, absolutely awesome. The second question had more to do with how do we actually survey and find out from the community what they would like to have. You know, we often impose programs, not you, but we often do that as a part of what we do. How do you really know what kinds of programs the community and the rich diversity of the community really wants to have?
Well, I think we go about it in different ways. The community, our partners are not shy, so they will tell us what they feel certain communities need, and many times we listen to them and we implement those. So I don't have to do a lot of the thinking in that area, and they are trusted. So we like to talk about those things with our partners, but then also when we have programs, the patrons are also not shy. They've been taking more surveys this year, and they've been sharing their thoughts. And I think through my time at NDPL, really people just want to be asked. They might not come up to you straight away and let you know, but if you ask, they will tell. So I think that's another way that we try to get the community input for programs.
And as a follow-up to that, if there was anything more that you would ask of the work, what would it be?
You mean
Yes.
what I
Just
would
like you're doing,
what
yeah.
I would ask? Well,
For your programs.
Okay. I think it's really important, as I mentioned in the presentation, that we need a lot of support, and really you don't have to do much, or people don't have to do much, but just I think, and that comes out in our Meet Your Neighbor program. I didn't realize a lot of people were interested in learning more about refugees and the people who live here. But since we've offered this class and it was giving people a way to help, has brought a great response. And so I think I would like to provide more opportunities for people to feel comfortable to support the immigrants here. A lot of people don't know what to do. They want to help, but they don't know how. And so I would like to provide those opportunities so people feel more comfortable to join us.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Dr. Palacio?
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you to you and everybody doing those programs. It means a lot. When you arrived to this country, and I mean, disclosure, I was born in New York, but I lived in Puerto Rico, and then returning here, growing up here and not even knowing the language, like I had to learn English as an adult to get to some sort of fluency. But even to where you get to the place that you feel you belong, that's a long road. And everything you guys are doing, and when you say you want to pay attention to those details, that's very important. Every detail matter. Even the thank yous and all that, and the welcoming on the building, and the slide that you put there, even a simple word in your language means so much. So thanks for doing all that.
No, I appreciate it, and I haven't had the pleasure of working with you, but I've seen you out in the community as well, and for people to be able to see your face is very important. This morning, I received an email from a potential patron who was looking for English classes, and she said that she was really lonely and she didn't know anyone. So the library has been that space for many people, and I just really want to see that continued, because even though we all don't get to see that day to day, there are people walking away feeling that somebody cared about them. So thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you again.
Thank you
Really
for having me.
appreciate your time.
Can you hear me?
Mr. Clyde, one moment. You had a question, Mr. Lane? I'm sorry.
I do. I don't know if my audio is working. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, thank you, Sakura, for that awesome presentation. My question is, with all of the amazing programming that's coming out of your department, how is the collections being promoted during these programming, especially the World Languages collection? Thank you for taking my question.
That's a great question. So a lot of the time during events, we will have, for example, in Central, they have the book displays. So we will create, the librarians will create a display for the event and to promote the event, but also for people to have patrons to take away books for further reading if they're interested. The World Language Collection, I have to be honest, we could do better. And Jill and I have been devising ways to be able to promote that. So a lot of the books that we take to events or tabling events just to share what we have as a small sample are in English. And this year we are pushing to be more inclusive, to get those world language books out there to people as well, so that, and make that a part of our displays when we go out or when we have events.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. At a recent meeting, we heard from our social worker, Yana McGraw, who gave an update on social work in the library, and at that time told us that she was requesting an evaluation of the social work at NDPL to help with understanding the landscape as well as the way forward in terms of additional resources, potentially another position. And so we have a special presentation today on the formal assessment of NDPL Social Work Department. And for this, we will welcome Ms. Beth Waller, who is joining us also remotely. Ms. Waller, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you for speaking with our board, and you can proceed with your presentation.
Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with all of you today. So I'm going to give a very brief overview of the recent review of the NDPL social work program. And just to give you a little bit of background, I wanted you to know who I am and then a little bit about what social work in the library looks like nationally right now. So I actually was, until relatively recently, living in the Indianapolis area. I was working as a faculty member and associate dean of the School of Social Work there at IUPUI for the Indiana University School of Social Work. I then went on to become the director of the School of Social Work at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. And for the past 8 or 9 years, my primary research and now my consulting business focuses on how we can support public library patrons with sort of some of the non-traditional information needs they have, such as mental health, poverty-related needs, things like that. And then I also do work with my consulting business around ways that we can reduce staff stress and trauma and different kinds of collaborations, programs, and services for supporting both patrons and staff in libraries, including social work collaborations. So I've worked with social work and library collaborations actually internationally now in libraries of all sizes, both small, rural, suburban, kind of mid-size, and then really large statewide, large urban library systems or even large state library associations. I also had worked with NDPL years ago to do the initial needs assessment to help set the stage and gather data to inform the social work program there. And I provided oversight for the initial social work intern student program, which was the very first step that NDPL took with adding social work in the library. I also have a book that is about things like this called Creating a Person-Centered Library, Best Practices for Supporting High Needs Patrons, which includes collaborations between social workers and libraries. So I was contracted by the Indianapolis Public Library to do a holistic program review of the social work program there. And the guiding questions that I was asked to answer were, we were looking at how the program has been implemented there because these programs vary based on the library. So we were looking at what methods the program is using to operate there in Indianapolis, how well the program is currently functioning, what is working well, what could be improved, how well the program is succeeding at meeting its original goals, and whether the program was supported to its maximum potential by the way it is currently supported in the organizational structure. And then also looking at how satisfied the library is as a whole with the existing social work program. In addition, I was told that there could be plans to potentially expand the program and add an additional position. So I was asked to consider what recommendations I would have for what that position might look like and how the program could grow. Just to give you some bigger context, there's really a growing movement across the country and internationally to partner social workers with libraries. These partnerships are mostly happening in the US, but they are also happening in Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. The first full-time library social worker started in San Francisco back in 2009. And then really there were only a few positions that popped up until around the time the pandemic started in 2020 and after, we started seeing large numbers of libraries or relatively large numbers of libraries adding social work positions. Indianapolis added the full-time position that Yana McGraw is currently in 2021. And right now, there are approximately 105 full-time library social workers who are on staff in libraries internationally, and then 54 sort of other library social work positions that are in libraries but not hired by the library, and then 173 libraries hosting social work interns. So it's still relatively unique. And certainly NDPL was at the forefront of this movement to add social workers in libraries, and we're seeing more and more of these. The programs, as I said, are as varied as the libraries they're in. The differences in positions really depend on the community context, the resources that are there, and the people who initially started the position and how they pictured it being. There really are no standard guidelines or best practices for library social work positions. So it's not uncommon for a library to be a few years in, like NDPL is, and to request some kind of review or evaluation to make sure that the program is really being used in the best way possible and as the best fit possible for that particular library. There actually are a growing number of libraries that are similar to NDPL and asking for reviews of the programs at this point. So I know you know a little bit about social work in the library, and Yana has talked about this before, but social workers in libraries do lots of different things. In the social work world, we call these micro to macro responsibilities, and the micro level responsibilities include working with individual patrons to assess their needs, help connect them to resources, provide some service coordination or help in the midst of a crisis. We also do meso services, which are group focused services. So these can be training or programming that happens in libraries. And then macro level social work responsibilities in libraries include things to help the organization as a whole or to address community needs. So some library social workers are really working more at the organizational level to support security protocols and work collaboratively to ensure that populations and groups visiting the library are treated equitably and that policies don't inadvertently disadvantage certain groups and things like that. So for this particular review, I worked with Yana McGraw and John Helling to plan the methods of the review and to get approval as I moved forward. I visited NDPL between February 5th and February 9th, and during that visit, I met with many different people for individual meetings. I facilitated focus groups with the Social Service Action Committee, with management, with staff, mostly from Central, but also involving some of the staff from other locations. I observed the social worker and social work interns meeting with patrons, working office hours, interacting with community partners, et cetera. And I also had two focus groups with community partners who collaborate with Yana and the social work program, including the interns. The current model that's being used at NDPL is to have one full-time social worker who works primarily at Central, although she does try to serve multiple branches, but as you can understand, one person can only do so much. And her services are supplemented by social work interns throughout the year. It is a non-clinical program. It's mostly office-based, so she works out of an office in Central. There's an office on the 4th floor where patrons come when they need assistance, and it is clearly an information needs model. So this means, as Yana clearly said to me, that she connects people to the resources. She's not the resource. So Indianapolis and the library has been very clear that this is addressing information needs of patrons that may be social services related, but it's not a clinical program. One of the things I observed when I was there is that she has a very broad job description that has lots of different tasks, both helping individual patrons and supporting staff, assisting with staff training, and things like that are all in her job description. But because of priorities that were set when she first started, most of her time is really spent either helping individual patrons with their needs or helping to build community collaborations that will ultimately help patrons with their needs. So when the program began, we didn't know a lot. There were not a lot of best practices. There was not a lot of guidance. One of the things we've learned over the years is when there is only one social worker in a system, the library can really get the most impact from allowing that person and empowering that person to work at the macro level where they're providing support to the library as a whole. The NDPL program really is created so it's mostly providing micro level or individual level services. So I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, but that is one thing to certainly think about how the library wants to move forward with this. So I did hear lots through this program review about what a great job Yana has done of creating this program from scratch. She has clearly worked very hard to try to help build a program that works for the library and is helping patrons. We've heard from several people already tonight that have talked about ways that she's been helpful. And what I heard is the strengths of the current program are that having the social work program there has really increased and improved relationships between the library and community partners, that it's helped to increase connections between patrons who have these social service related needs and the available community resources, that the presence of the social work program has increased communication to staff about available community resources so that they know more about what's going on and when there are changes that have happened. And it's helped to reinforce the importance of a trauma-informed culture and increased empathy from staff toward patrons who have lots of different complex challenges at times. The things that were raised as challenges of the current program and the current structure are, the first one was that there's a little bit of a lack of clarity about what the social worker's role, scope, and tasks are supposed to be, specifically her role with security, and that there is sometimes tension between the security approach and the social work, or the security response and the social work response with, in regard to patron challenges, and specifically challenges that come up with people who have social service related needs, and that there's not always clear guidance about which one of those responses is supposed to prevail when there is conflict. Other concerns or challenges are that sometimes there's a lack of integration between the social work program and the rest of the library. So sometimes since there's one social worker, that person isn't always able to be in staff meetings or team meetings or have frequent opportunities for communication with staff. And then also the social work program isn't well integrated into, or isn't perceived to be well integrated into, the strategic plan and the mission and the priorities of the library. I also heard that sometimes there's a perceived mismatch between the services that are able to be provided by one full-time social worker and the services that staff want. So many times staff wanted to have a social worker who was available in a crisis or who could do more outreach on the floor or help. They wanted to have a social worker they could call rather than security at times, depending on what was happening. And I also heard that people recognized that the needs of the patrons were often related to community level problems or gaps, and that the library could add 100 social workers and that still wouldn't make more housing appear in Indianapolis or make more resources appear or waiting lists disappear. So there was some recognition that the social worker can help connect people to resources, but if resources aren't there, the social work program at the library can't do everything. So my recommendations, just to wrap up, are that NDPL really think about what you want the desired scope to be of the social worker's role, and then streamline the job description accordingly, and make sure that everybody in the library is clear about what the scope and role is supposed to be. And that's specifically whether the person is going to mostly be serving patrons, or if you want a social worker to work more closely with security protocols or policy assistance or analysis or staff training and support or things like that. I recommend that the library really think about how to integrate the program as much as possible, and integrate in terms of creating opportunities for more communication between the social worker or social work program and staff, and also make sure that the program and the goals of the social work program are really integrated with the overall goals and mission of the library and its strategic plan. I also recommend that the social work program look at whether there is an opportunity to add some more outreach to the current model. So rather than being mostly office-based, think about whether there are opportunities to do more outreach on the floor, but that's going to depend on how many people are working with that program, and whether there are multiple student interns, et cetera, or if there are more social workers. I recommend increasing support for the social work program to help ensure its success and ensure the safety and well-being of the social worker. So there were some places that there were some things identified where the social worker could really use some more support, both tangible support for their own supervision needs, their own professional development, but also there were things like social work students often addressing the needs of patrons, but not having any way of calling for help or calling for assistance if there was a crisis that happened. And then depending on the desired scope, if you are considering hiring an additional person for this program, it really depends on what you want that impact to be. If you want the social work program to have impact on overall library approaches to working with people who have complex needs, or providing support to staff, helping to assist with training needs, et cetera, then I would recommend that an MSW, another master's level person, is hired and primarily placed at some sort of administrative or management level. If the focus is really on increasing outreach to patrons and increasing services directly to patrons, then I would recommend that you consider a bachelor's level social worker, or even adding things like peer navigators, which are effective ways libraries are using to do outreach with people in the library who may have complex needs, like being unhoused or needing mental health services. So that's the end of my presentation. I don't know if anybody has questions. I'm going to stop my screen share.
Thank you, Dr. Waller. I'm going to ask, first of all, thank you for such a succinct and yet comprehensive summary of your report. I am going to ask, in the interest of time, that if there are questions, that each of our board members pick your favorite question, so that we can make sure to stay on schedule. Are there questions for Dr. Waller?
I wanted to ask if you could say a little bit more about the conflict, excuse me, I'm catching a cold here, the conflict between security and the social worker.
Yes, so I will say that that is extremely common in libraries that have a social worker. And there is often a lot that needs to be worked out, many of the between the security and the social work approach. So many of the patrons who come on the radar of security or have some sort of behavioral problem that comes up in the library, it's often related to some sort of social service related need they have, like a mental health problem, or they're highly stressed, or sometimes it's related to substance use, or often it's related to a social service need that they have. And so it can take some effort and collaboration to really partner the social work side with the security side to enforce behavioral expectations and policies in a way that's fair, but also to make sure people are getting connected to resources when they really need that, which can ultimately prevent more problems in the future with that particular individual, or more interactions with security with that individual. And if these two programs are not integrated well, or if there's not frequent communication with them, or in cases like this where there's really just there's one social worker and there's a bigger security team, then it's harder sometimes to discuss and really come to a collaborative decision about how to address a patron that may have a safety concern, but may also have a social service need. And so staff sometimes get caught in the middle of that because they call for help when there's something happening and they get security. And security has one way of working with that. And if possible, sometimes the social worker can be brought in to make sure the person is connected with resources, or even to help de-escalate the situation. Hopefully that helps a little bit. It really takes a lot of effort for the two sides to collaborate and to make sure that they're seeing each other's perspective.
Thank you for your response, and thank you for this report.
You're welcome.
I don't have a question, but more of a recommendation, a motion to refer Dr. Waller's recommendations and report to the Human Relations, Human Resource Diversity Committee for their consideration, and to have them to report back to the board with possible solutions or recommendations to the concerns brought forth.
Thank you, Dr. White. Do we need a motion for that? Do we need to actually vote on that? Or
You
we have
don't
to-
need it, but I want to
You would
formally
like
put
to
it
have
in
it?
the
Okay.
notes so that she will know and other people will know that we're serious about investigating this particular issue.
And I think there's consensus on that. I think the board has shown its support, and so appreciate your raising that so that it's very clear, the board's intent about support and encouragement of the program. Are there any other comments or questions? Dr. Palacio?
Hi, Dr. Waller. My question is more about, not trying to get to the end point here, but what kind of ratios of size of library to how many social workers you think is healthy?
Certainly more than one for a library your size. Again, there are no standard guidelines for how many social workers or what size team is needed, but NDPL is a very large library system with branches that have many diverse needs, and Central by itself has many different needs. And so certainly multiple social workers, or a combination of multiple social workers. And then I would also recommend looking at that peer navigator model. And if the board has additional questions, I'm also, feel free to ask me additional questions in the future, because I know you don't have a lot of time tonight about those particular models. But I would recommend considering multiple social workers, and also expanding and considering hosting peer navigators to help meet the needs of the library.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I don't. Request and what have you are so important that it should be an official action by the board, so it can be on the record, so we will know, are we serious about this, or is it just another presentation? And so having that to come from Diversity, Human Resource, and Equity Committee would be meaningful to me, and I think to the board. I don't know.
Well, it's an additional part of that, and I know you're right in terms of trying to keep us on track. I'll make it just quick. One of the things that Beth pointed out, and good to see you again, Beth. We used to meet there on the campus. She said, if we want to have an impact, then we need to think about these particular things. And so we need to discuss as a board, what's the impact that we want to have? And so that's not relegated to a committee, that's relegated to a discussion that the board needs to have in order to talk about, okay, are we ready to do an integrated model where we really do say this Masters of Social Work person can move to an administrative level? Is that something that we want? Or is it something that's dealing with the peer navigator model? Is it something? So having that rich of a discussion, Eugene, as a follow-up to it is an important one. And I know that sometimes we get things into the committees. That's great, because I know Ray and the committee will do well on it. But at the same time, what do we as a board say is important as well?
I would say, because not so much the committee, I really want HR to examine this, and John and the CEO, and to make a recommendation to the board so we have a starting point. I don't want to be the one to process this. I want to be the one to kind of complete the process with the board. So that's why I was saying it that particular way. But either way, I'm supporting that we look into this, because, this could be a Pandora's box issue, because meeting the need with the clientele we have and the situation we have would be a tremendous kind of task to do, because one social worker is almost impossible, and people probably laugh at that, because that's not going to meet the needs that we are aware of. However, I think there's a compromise and a starting point that we can make progress towards that, and in keeping with that, there are sources of grants and finance out here that can also don't understand yet that social work is aligned with public library, because we all are giving service to the community, and there may be funds available to do these kind of things. But this is not a simple issue. This is a pretty comprehensive initiative, so you got to think it out and get the right people involved. But I'm pleased with the fact that we appreciate Dr. Waller's report, and that we are facing really an issue whose time has come, and we know that from dealing with the different kind of behaviors, personalities, and needs that occur in our various branches. So that's my point of looking at it. But I'm pleased that we are going to look at it.
If I could add to that, to your point, priorities, are illustrated by the amount of resources that an organization puts behind them. And we right now have two great opportunities as a board and as an organization to look at our priorities with regard to this. It's time to start talking about the budget. And it is also, we're also in the process of fashioning our strategic plan. So I think that, that strategic plan is receiving input from our staff, from the community, as well as the board members. And so I would encourage Ms. McKenzie to at least put that on a list so that we can be intentional about talking about the level of resources and commitment that we have to it and deal with the complexities that Dr. White and Dr. Murtada have talked about and that Dr. Waller has presented tonight. So I think we will refer this to the Diversity Policy and HR Committee to keep on our list of things to do. We'll look to hear from our HR and Public Services Officer and our CEO and check in about the timing of those discussions during those two important processes, the budget and the strategy, our strategic planning, and look to have another report at the board level when that work is at the appropriate place. Does that sound good? Does that sound good with everyone? Yes. Okay, great. So thank you again, Dr. Waller. If there are no other questions, we really appreciate it and look forward to being in touch as we continue to explore and think about this very important topic. And I also want to thank Ms. McGraw for her leadership as well as the willingness to be open to evaluation and assessment. That is, well, you're a social worker, so you know the importance of that. But it is not often, I mean, it is I won't say it's not often, but it can also be rare. So kudos to you for your openness, and thanks to all of our team who assisted with this assessment. Okay? Anything else? Okay.
Thank you for your time and attention tonight.
Thank you. All right, so our next agenda item is public comment. And I will leave that to Ms. Gilbert to administer, and our counsel, Mr. Maxwell, I don't know if you know, but you're the official timekeeper. That's it, for our speakers. So, Ms. Gilbert?
Yes. We do welcome feedback from the public about our Indianapolis libraries, and this is a time when the public may address the library board. If there are several individuals representing the same group, please select a spokesperson. Please do not repeat the same comment someone else has offered. Please note also that this public comment time is not the appropriate forum for commenting on matters related to employee charges, employee complaints, or alleged employee misconduct. Any such matters should be brought promptly to the attention of the CEO or the Human Resources Department, where matters can be properly addressed in compliance with established library policies and procedures. A 5-minute limit will be allowed for each speaker. Each speaker should give their name and if they are speaking on behalf of a group. Okay, we're going to start off. I will start off by apologizing because some of the names are a little tricky. So if I don't get it right, I'm sorry. The first person on the list is Dr. Joseph Lawson, Jr. And then after that, we're going to be hearing from Hassan Mahanakani? Okay.
Good evening to the board and everyone here. I'm Dr. Joseph Lawson, Jr. I'm a retired Army veteran. In my career as a manager, human resource specialist, career counselor, recruiter, it was centered on customer service. And that is why I'm here today, having the privilege and opportunity to communicate the customer service that I've been receiving here at the Eagle Branch. I completed my doctorate degree here, and the Eagle Branch provided an atmosphere of a safe haven of learning. It was like my getaway spot, and I would always come here, and there were some things that I observed every time that I came here. The first thing is the professionalism of this staff. They were always unwavering. Some of the patrons that we spoke about today with the mental issues, substance abuse issues are regulars here. But in the whole time that I came here, they were always professional in the way they dealt with them when they would get, irate or loud or boisterous or whatever. The whole staff always dealt with them professionally. I found them always to be patient and responsive when patrons would raise their hand and need help, and they would go over and help, and then see the problem through, especially when the person was of a diverse culture and the language barrier that you spoke about earlier was in place. They would never get frustrated, even though the patron would get frustrated. They would be so calm. And the last thing I want to speak about is the proficiency of this staff. I've never seen anyone leave out of here saying, I didn't get the help, or I've got to go somewhere else. If they didn't have the answer right there, they were always able to call on another staff member to come over. So as the place where I did most of my doctorate work and in this environment, which I would love to leave home and come here, I just want to thank the board and the Eagle Branch for allowing that everything that takes place here is a model. So I commend this Eagle Branch. That's all I have.
Yes. And then next, we will have Parissa Kay.
Madam President, members of board, good evening. My name is Hassan Mihankho. I started using library in late 70s, so that says how old I am, okay? I recall the great entrance, terrazzo floor, and the important wooden library cabinet holding the index cards for the books. For 3 years, I frequently used the library while attending IUPUI. Well, the IUPUI is not the same, and definitely the Central Library is much more majestic. Because of my work, everyday life, and invention of internet, I frequented the library less in past few years. 2 years ago, after a long engineering career, I got retired, so I had more time to my other interests. I am, along with a few other Iranian Americans, are advocating human rights issues, especially in my birth country of Iran, and trying to be the voice of the ones that have been silenced. In this process, we came across a movie about life of Fereydun Farrokhzad. He was an Iranian entertainer, politician, who was brutally murdered in Germany. We contacted the producer and obtained the permission to show his movie in Indianapolis. We tried several facilities in town. We found stumbling blocks in front of us, and also the cost of renting the space was above our small budget. So we were almost given up on this project until we came across the theater in the Central Library. After a few conversations and appointments, we were able to secure a date to show the movie in the Central Library Theater. After this event, we found out about the gallery area in the library and its availability for artists to display their arts. A few months prior to this date, there was an uprising in Iran for murder of young woman Mahsa Amini by morality police, which in a period of a month, 3,000 people were killed. Several thousand were injured and imprisoned. We had seen some art by anonymous artists portraying this event. With the help of a few contacts, we were able to get digital copies of these arts, so we were back to our newly found friends in the library, and again, we secured a space to display these arts, mainly from anonymous artists. I want to extend our sincere appreciation to Jill Edwards, Sakura Fukua, and Jim Mayers of the library. They were most helpful. They went well above and beyond the call of duty to help in the making sure these events were flawless. Without them and their resources, we could not have accomplished what we did. At the end, I want to thank the board of the trustee, which had the vision in building the wonderful facility and enabling caring individuals like Jill and Sakura to enrich our community, education, art, and culture. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I think everything Hassan said, it was part of my talk too. I mean, I lived most of my life I was in U.S., in Terre Haute, Indiana. Public library was part of my life from beginning. I immigrant to U.S. And I was signing up for the English as a second language there, and I had my kids going there almost every day, picking up books, and then we moved a few years ago back to Indy. So those events Hassan mentioned, we really struggled to find a place. Then finally, the story, all he said. And I came here to say thank you all, and especially Sakura and Jill. They help us a lot, and it means a lot to us, and open so many doors to send a message from Iranian to any other states and Canada, and we had that give us opportunity to show the movie and have our Iranian Revolt exhibition. So now so many people want to show the exhibition we had and the movie. It's just beyond our imagination. Thank you so much. Just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank both of you.
Next, we are going to have Esquas for Zion. And then after that, we will have Pallet Sanders.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
Hi. My name is Isaias. I am a scratchboard artist. Last year, I was at the Central Library, and I saw someone's art exhibit, and I was very interested in showing my own artwork. And with the help of Sakura, Erica, and Jill, I started to show my artwork. And my first time was last year, 2023, on April for the whole month. And this year, also on April, it's still on show. And since I start exhibiting my artwork, I got a lot of exposure. Then I was collaborating with Indy Public School. I started to teach the technique of the introduction to art, scratchboard art, and I start to teach in different location now. And thank you so much to Public Library, and also thank you to Sakura, Jill, and Erica.
Question, pardon me, I'm interested to know what scratchboarding is. Am I the only one? Has anyone? What is scratchboard? You know what it is? We're at the library. I heard scratchboard.
So scratchboard is a unique medium. Usually when we draw with pencil on a white paper, we emphasize on the shadow because the pencil is black. So this medium scratchboard, it comes black, but underneath is white. So it was made with like MDF, like a wood, covered with white gesso. After it dries, it was painted black. So what you see is black. With the help of like any sharp tool, if you scratch it off, white reveals.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the reverse way. On a scratchboard, I emphasize on highlight. So I just leave the black as a shadow. So it's just a beautiful technique, and if you get a chance, you guys can go and check my work at the Central Library. You can select about 20 pieces, around 20 pieces I got there.
Awesome.
Thank you. Sure.
Thank you.
We have Palette Sanders. And then we'll have Ginger Kosabuki and Abasade.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for having me here. I feel so proud to be an American because the United States has libraries everywhere. So it is, I feel emotional about it because it was, I was so just moved to know that I could take a book home when I couldn't afford books back when I arrived. So I'm Patty with Chicas Fit. It's a group. I connect people, women to nature. Latinas, we are in our countries within feel safe to be in nature. But here we have the opportunity to have amazing parks like Garfield, Holiday Park, Fort Harrison, and so many little parks that are being improved as we speak. So I feel the revival, Indianapolis is just one of the most incredible cities to live in. And I connect people to nature, and I happened to meet Sakura and Jill, and they invited me to the library to start a fitness program for seniors. After COVID, a lot of isolation among our seniors. I go to all the buildings where seniors are Spanish-speaking and non-Spanish-speaking. So there was a need to invite them to the Central Library to move through the beautiful building that is like a museum. And we had different stations, and we would have all the music, all these tango to flamenco to salsa to the Supremes, everybody's invited. So we have a variety of music and actually interaction and building community, which is like after COVID, we know we need each other. So I just feel so lucky to have been part of the program that Sakura and Jill invited me to be part of. And I met them at the community garden that I am part of for refugees. So now it's the connection with Seeds and our community. So it's like building a beautiful web in Indianapolis. I'm thinking that we are equipped with incredible people, and you're doing a great job. So I feel so fortunate to be in Indianapolis and be part of improving mental health, as we all need it. So maybe we can all take a deep breath. Another one. And now, are we ready for a headstand? So thank you so much. Thank you for supporting the programs that we have at the library that is helping so many people, including myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Ginger Kasabutsky, and I'm the English Learning Director at the Immigrant Welcome Center. And I want to take a few minutes to express our gratitude to Indianapolis Public Library for the partnership with Immigrant Welcome Center over the past, especially the past 3 years. And we'd especially like to thank the Foundation for its support of the Pathway to Literacy program, which is an English language program for adult learners with limited or interrupted formal education. And as you all know, and as we saw on Bethany's slides, the zip codes of 46227 and 46224 represent high immigrant populations. And so the branches of Southport and Eagle, in particular, have strategically and intentionally been creating a place for immigrants to come and feel welcome. Southport Library supports and hosts a class, and it now has a waiting list for August, and this branch, Eagle, hosts a class for learners from 8 different countries. They come twice a week to learn oral language and improve their literacy skills. And they've also been assisted by the wonderful library staff here to get library cards, and also they were absolutely thrilled to get seed packets. I think probably our students were the ones who made Bethany's numbers go up. And 2 of the students with library cards have requested bilingual picture dictionaries, so I know that that goes particularly to his question about how do the people in the program affect the world language requests. And so we have Pashto English and Kinyarwanda English dictionaries on request. And yeah, the library staff here helped us request these. And all of these things make them feel more a part of the fabric of society here. And we're really grateful for the library for its support and collaboration. And by investing in the literacy of the parents, we know that the whole family benefits. And now I'd just like to turn it over to one of the students in the class for a few minutes. Her name's Abosede. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Abosede Faramayi. I come from Nigeria. Really, I'm just here to say thank you, because I don't know where I want to start from. When I start this class, I'm thinking, before when I'm be with people, even if I want to try to explain myself, I will not be able to talk, because I don't know the one that I will say that will be wrong. Because I noticed that America's, everything is different. The way we speak in my Nigeria is different when I hear. But when I hear with this class reading and they spoken, the way they teach, oh my God, I really love it. And I want to say thank you to the teacher, because they take everybody along as if that we know each other before, and which is no. But the way they teach, they will make sure that you understand what they say before they will move forward. So I'm here to say thank you, ma. God will bless you. Because the class make me to read the way more than the way I'm reading before. So I say thank you, ma'am. God will help you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And our last speaker is Biragaye Musagand. He left. Oh, okay. Then that concludes the speakers.
Okay, thank you. And I think we'll know that this was the practical part of Secura's presentation tonight. And what a wonderful testament is to the work that you are doing. And so I want to say thank you again for all of the testimony for your work. Okay.
One comment.
Yes.
At some point or another, we need to think about what does it mean that there's a difference between immigrant and refugee populations. And I so appreciate the work that our branches are doing to recognize and support both immigrants and refugees. But there's a tendency to say immigrant and refugee, when the needs are so very different, the strengths and the assets are so very, very important. And so I just want to make sure that we as library board members support the work that's being done, but also understand that difference between immigrant and refugee populations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murtada. Okay, we are moving on to the next item on our agenda, which is approval of the minutes. We have minutes from our regular meeting of March 25th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on from March 25th, 2024? Is there a second?
Second.
The minutes have been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call. Please, Ms. Gilbert?
Oh, approved.
Mr. Lane?
Approved?
Dr. Murtada? Approved. Dr. Palacio?
Approved.
Dr. Payne?
Approved.
Dr. White?
Approved.
And Ms. Tribble?
Approved.
Thank you.
The motion carries. Moving on, we have the minutes from the executive session from April 15th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
The minutes have been moved and is there a second?
Second.
All right, the minutes have been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Mr. Biederman?
Approved.
Mr. Lane?
Approved?
Dr. Murtada?
Approved.
Dr. Palacio?
Approved.
Dr. Payne?
Approved.
Dr. White?
Approved.
And Ms. Tribble?
Approved.
Thank you.
The minutes are passed. And I also want to thank Ms. Gilbert for the continuing summarization of our minutes. I think they do a great job of capturing them, some very detailed information, and also allowing us to move through them at a decent clip. Our next, we will begin with committee reports, and we'll start with the Finance Committee, chaired by Dr. Payne, and with members Dr. Luis Palacio and Dr. Jean White.
As our CFO, Lolita Campbell, here she is, and our treasurer, Mary Rankin, come to the table. I just wanted to thank our committee members, Dr. White and Dr. Palacio.
And as you sit down, I do want to mention, I talked about resources around social work earlier, and I mentioned McKinsey, but also mentioned the budget, so I also want you to put that on your list of things to discuss as when budget time comes around.
Of course.
So good to have you. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mary and I will present the Treasury report ending the first quarter of 2024, March the 31st, 2024. I will review the revenue, and Mary will review the expenditures. The property taxes, of course, we don't receive to the second and fourth quarter. However, if you look on page 49 of the Treasury report of the cash flow, you'll see that we're predicted to receive $22.5 million next quarter. And then the intergovernmental revenue is consistent month to month. We receive the local option income tax and also the county option income tax regularly every month. And charges for services, public printing, we receive $35,000. The miscellaneous, which is interest revenue, for the month of March, we received $174,408. And I'd like to emphasize that we changed the way that we earn interest by selecting a Chase sweep account, and therefore we earned a little bit over $60,000 than we typically would in a month. And you can see that on page, I think it's 51 of the Treasury report, of the board report. And for the total for the month is $633,000. On the next slide, you'll see the revenue, a graph for the revenue for the month to month. The blue line is for March of 2024, and the orange line is for March of 2023, with the gray line being the monthly budget. As you can see, that we're right in line with our budget that we have predicted. And the next graph is also the year-to-date, which is the 2024 versus 2023. And as you can see, it's kind of constant. The library has a certain cadence, and it's typically the same almost every year. Any questions in regards to the revenue? Oops. Next, Mary will go over the expenditures.
This is the month of March. We have personal services and benefits. Overall year-to-date is 3% less than the monthly budget. The supplies, facility, office supplies, a little high, but within budget. Other services and charges includes legal in that line item, and it's under the monthly budget. And capital outlay, it's consistent with last year. It's under budget, and that's for the books in this, because we're talking about the operating fund. So those are primarily books. And then there's a graph presentation which compares March of 2024 is blue, March of 2023 is orange, and the gray is the 2024 budget for the month, and then on the right is year-to-date. So you can see we're doing well, keeping within budget for most areas, month-to-date and year-to-date. We also have a 5-year review that compares overall 5 years revenue and expenditures. And the major expenditures broke down by type as well. Were there any questions? Okay.
On the following slide, we have the XBE for the first quarter of 2024. This reflects that the MBEs and the the VPEs are within our goal. Our goals for the MBE is 15%, and we exceeded that goal. And then for the WEB, the goal was 8%. We're under that goal. And then for the VPE, the goal was 3%, and we have exceeded that goal. And then for the DOD, it's been consistent with that 0%, and our goal was 1%. Any questions in regards to the first quarter of the for the XBEs?
Yeah, I have a question. For the XBEs, who are the typical vendors for getting us to that goal? Is it presenters or contract workers that work on like the buildings, or who are the typical XBE vendors that we work with?
I believe most of them are contractors that worked on a building, but my expert is not here, Gwen, and maybe Adam might be able to have more insight on some of the XBE contract information.
When looking at the budget, both operating and capital outlays, the operational services, formerly known as facilities, accounted for more than 80% of the total organizational budget. And so, yeah, that department, which mostly uses contractors, would be service contractors and...
Oh, we need you to speak into a mic.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so let me repeat all that. The I believe the 2023 total spend for the organization, operational services, formerly known as facilities, accounted for 80+% of the entire organizational spend. The bulk of that was for contractors who work on the buildings. Operationally, they take care of our buildings, anything from landscaping and grounds to electrical to mechanical to plumbing. And for capital outlay, these are contractors that are building our buildings. And so using that as an almost apples to apples comparison, yes, most of these would be contractors that are making up the bulk of the XBE spend.
Did that answer your question, Stephen?
Thank you. I think what would be more helpful is maybe to have like a breakdown, like to see the itemized list of these XBE vendors that we're working with. Thank you.
Okay, we do have that list, and I can have that presented to you or emailed to the board.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Any other questions regarding the XBEs? Thank you, Adam. No.
I just do have one question. I noticed that our DLBE, which is Disabled-Owned Business Enterprises, do we know, I know that when we do disparity studies, there has to be that ownership in the community. We have nothing at this point, right? And I'm just wondering, is that a function of the type of work that we have been contracting for, or what kind of response are we getting from disabled-owned business enterprises? Do we know?
I think it's a combination of what you said, the type of work. The responses may be very low, and may not meet the requirements as well, but I can send you more information on that if you need more background regards to that.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're obviously doing well.
Yeah.
In all of the other categories, and so I think it's a good time to also ask what, if anything, more we can do around the category where we're not performing.
Just one point of emphasis on this again. I think in the Facilities Committee and one or two other places, Dr. Matale has said this, and that is we probably need to do a better job of going to like the school for the deaf or the school for the blind and those type of situations to see people that they are producing or they are working with so we can expand the pool of possible entrepreneurs. Because quite frankly, right now, as it's in no fault to a particular entrepreneur that I could name for you, but that seems to be the primary entrepreneur that gets the job for the disabled category. And again, we might want to think about seeing what we can do to improve the communication with those other entities. And then if we can't get enough information, that's a whole different story. But at least we probably should ask graduates of those places who does what. So we've said this about, since I've been on the board at least 3 times, I've heard it. But we probably need to follow up with that and get some type of contact with those institutions that produce those kind of candidates and see what's what.
Hope we do business, for example, with Crossroads of America, and yet they can't be counted in here because it's not a business owned by a person, but yet they do employ, and they are probably an organization that the federal government has labeled as a set-aside organization, where they have procurement preference, and we might want to look at that, whether to include groups like that on this disabled category.
I guess one question I had, I know that when we had a discussion about planning for the future, there was like an award to, I thought, a disabled-owned business as part of one of the larger grants. Has that just not hit yet? Like, wasn't it Fehrenbaugh
That's.
If you're talking about the long-term patron assessment, yes, that was a Faribault Group, and that company is disabled owned. Yes, so that was part of the entire system, long-term assessment.
Primary entrepreneur that receives those kind of bids in that particular category, isn't he?
He's worked with the library before as part of a larger group when assessing renovations or new buildings.
Yes,
if we can get to the weeds for just a second, my favorite term. So that particular project, that was spearheaded by Schmidt Associates, an architecture firm out of Indianapolis. They put together a group using the guidance that we had given them as part of our RFP that states very clearly, resolution number, and I can't remember the number off the top of my head, has dictated that, or determined that we have 4 individual XBE goals of 15, 8, 3, and 1. These groups try, and they were one among many who submitted. They do try their best to meet that goal, those 4 individual goals on a project-by-project basis. The companies that Schmidt and the other companies that spearheaded, we don't have any impact or we don't have any decision on. They just present, hey, here's the group that we want to use of our 7 companies that we want to use for this project. Similar things happen with other services. There are some projects that we do go out for quote or bid that is a single company. And most times a company can only be counted as one type of XBE. And so disabled-owned business enterprises are able to bid directly on those. And that is part of their overall evaluation. That being said, I will add this one caveat. I use the term quote or bid. The XBE categories are not a part of the decision matrix for quote or bid because those are capital projects, which are mandated to be run by Indiana code, which means the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Our individual organization's goal of hiring XBE vendors is a non-factor in those awards.
Okay.
Thank you for that detailed response.
All right. Any other questions? So, back to you.
All right. Some quick updates. We will start our audit next week, the full-blown audit, and then our budget season will start soon as well. And that's it for the treasury report. Any questions? I don't ask that.
No. Are there any other questions? Okay. I know for the budget season, you're just getting started, but there are usually some special dates for the board. I don't know if we have those on the calendar yet.
They will come out next month.
Okay, that would be great because
Yes.
we want to give our board members plenty of time to prepare to be there. Those are very important meetings. So
Yes.
appreciate
Those will be on the, it will be included in the next treasury report.
Okay.
Okay.
That concludes your report of the treasurer?
Yes, it
So
does.
is there a motion to accept the report of the treasurer for March 2024 for filing for audit?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call, please, to accept the report of the treasurer.
Mr. Peterman?
Approve?
Mr. Lane?
Approve.
Dr. Matata?
Approved.
Dr. Palacio?
Approve.
Dr. Payne?
Approved.
Dr. White?
Approve.
And Ms. Tribble?
Approve.
Thank you.
The motion carries. Moving forward.
Next, I have to present Resolution 19-2024, and this is a transfer between classifications and accounts. This transfer is in the operating fund is to move funds within the facilities department budget from a non-capital furniture and equipment to security services to cover contracted service expenses in 2024. This transfer has no impact in the total budget for the 2024. The transfer amount is $70,500. Again, it's from the non-capital furniture equipment character 2 to character 3, which is other services and charges, security services. And this is to cover some of the expenses. The security has moved up from 40 hours to 55 hours, so that's why there has been an increase in, well, that's part of the reason why it's been an increase in the expenses.
Okay. Resolution 19, 2024, regarding the transfer between classifications and accounts, has received a positive recommendation from the Finance Committee. So the chair would request a second to such recommendation.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. How do you determine which account to transfer funds like this? Like, how would you determine to transfer the funds from the furniture and equipment fund over, say, the snow and ice removal fund?
So Adam looked at his budget. Yes, and determined where he can move some funds from, but he can tell you his methodology of deciding what category to move them from.
Sure thing.
Mhm.
All right, so, oops. So at Central Library, they use an intra-building communication system that's provided by a company called Vocera. Stephen, I'm sure you're familiar with this as you've used it when you were a staff member at Central. I'm sorry, Mr. Lane. I apologize. I should use the proper address. And so that system was reaching its end of life and needed to be replaced. That system cost approximately $75,000, and I was made aware of this during the 2024 budget planning season in 2023 calendar year. As such, I didn't think it could be used, it could be paid for out of bond funding, and it needed to be paid out of the operational budget. So I included $75,000 into non-capital furniture and equipment in my operational budget, Fund 101. After some discussions with members of Clark Quinn, we discovered that this could be paid for out of bond funding, and we actually have purchased the Vocera equipment. It is on its way if it hasn't been delivered already. So now there was 75,000, well, I think it was 72,000. It's still left in that line item that is now unassigned. And so I conferred with Lolita and other staff, and we determined that the security services were being used at a slightly higher rate than expected, and we wanted to ensure that we had enough funding to last through the end of the year. This was the first step towards that, and so I proposed moving it to the line item that paid for the security services budget.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Adam. I have a follow-up question, if I may, in terms of, just making sure that we're staying within the contracts of the budget and amounted or allotted for the security. Like, how do we ensure that they don't go over budget in the future? Or how do we make sure that they're not, using more than?
Right. And so when we created the 2024 budget in 2023, I had a certain number of total hours that third-party security services would be used by the library, and I used that times their hourly rate to come up with an estimated budget for that particular line item. Unfortunately, situations are fluid, and we have had to employ the third-party security company more often than, honestly, that we would prefer, because we would prefer to use our in-house LSA team. And so there is no maximum budgeted amount in this particular contract. The contract that was approved by the, or the resolution that was approved by the board and the contract that was signed by the library only states hourly rates, not maximum budget.
Okay, thank you.
Just another point of information, not clarification. I think the answer to that question Stephen gave is you can't predict that. But one of the ways that some entities take care of that, they create a line item for emergencies or unforeseen things. And when these kind of things happen, you go to that line item.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that Lolita said that she would investigate as we develop the next budget, realizing that when you do that in some organizations, people cheat on that because they know that there is a line you can pull from. But that just takes maintenance of the budget lines on the part of our professionals here to make sure we don't compromise that. But if you add that line in, then you won't have to have these situations.
Yeah, so when I created the 2024 budget, when actually I created the 2023 budget as well, I use a process called zero-based budgeting, which is starting from the ground and building up rather than relying on last year's or the last 5 years' budget. I wanted to take a look at what we do, what we expect to pay, and for this particular item, I don't think I built in a contingency. We use contingencies all the time in capital projects, both owners and contractors, but I don't think I built one in, so that is a lesson learned.
But the line I'm talking about would pertain to any of our budget categories, from facilities run on down. So, but that's something that I think they're going to consider to put in, and then we won't have to seem like we're taking from Peter to pay Paul or what have you. It will be there. And then if it's not used, it rolls over into where?
It rolls over into the fund balance.
That's right.
At the end of the calendar year.
Right.
Great.
So it's a simple process, but it will eliminate these kind of questions.
Any further discussion on Resolution 19, 2024? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Mr. Biederman?
Approve.
Mr. Lane?
No.
Dr. Matada?
Approved.
Dr. Palacio?
Approve.
Dr. Payne?
Approve.
Dr. White?
Approve.
And Ms. Chabot?
Approved.
Thank you.
The motion carries 6-1.
That's it?
I think that's it for you, and thank you for your report, Madam CFO, Madam Treasurer, and Mr. Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have two more committees, the Diversity Policy and Human Resources Committee. Mr. Biederman, is there any report?
No report today.
Thank you. And Dr. White, is there a report from the Facilities Committee?
Yeah, we're going to ask Adam to officially come forward, and we will go to that. He's been unofficial up to now, but he's official.
You have more to say?
I weren't sure if you were joking.
No.
All right.
We basically had one particular item that we spent some time on at the last facilities meeting, and I wanted Adam kind of to review that for you.
I'm sorry. We honestly, I think we spent time on several issues. What particularly did we want to review?
Well, one, your decision about the curve and the funding expense that exceeded our projection, what we're going to do with that. That's one. The other one kind of dealt with I want to get this right. The long-term assessment outreach point, but I get that if you do the first part.
Sure. The last major project that was part of the previous strategic plan was updating the learning curve, colloquially known as just the curve, at Central Library. for various reasons that have already been established. So the initial project was budgeted for a certain amount. The project expanded in scope to include all of floors 2 and 3 at Central Library, and we had a certain budget taking up the vast majority of a single bond issue. And so construction was a large portion of that at approximately $4 million. So we put together a bid package, and we hired a construction manager as constructor, who is then responsible for advertising bids for the individual trades. And they received the bids on April 2nd. And backing up 1 second, we had an expanded scope that once we got to that expanded scope, we realized that was significantly over the budget that was allotted. So we cut that down to just a base bid. After the bids came in, that the CMC, construction manager's constructor, solicited, the total amount for the base bid came in at approximately $800,000 over the allotted construction budget. The total amount for the base bid plus the alternates, which include the full expanded scope, was approximately $1.9 million over budget. At this point, we had, I thought we had 2 options, which we've discussed in the past week or so. The first was to analyze whether or not we could expand our bond issuance in some form or fashion. I won't go into the details, as we will be here for an extra 60 minutes with me talking. I don't think anybody wants that. But we had a meeting with our Olita, our CFO, our CEO, representation from Clark Quinn, Baker Tilly, and Barnes and Thornburg, who assist in our bond issuances. And it was determined at that was our second option. Our much preferred primary option was to review the bids that did come in and speak to the contractors to see if and when there could be cost savings on the base bid submitted. We had that meeting on Thursday of last week, and there are a couple of options that we could do that we are looking to pursue, that we are going to address first. It will take a couple of weeks to go through the process. Clark Quinn has to answer a few questions. I think I have a conference call with Russell on Wednesday or Thursday to work with this. And that will probably be the first. But that's where we are now. I'm still in the answering questions phase. Once I have certain questions answered, I can bring this back to our CEO and CFO, and we can make a formal decision on which path to move forward. And then we will move from there.
And just in case there may be people watching who may be wondering what's happening at Nora and Pike, Adam updated us on that, and just for the record or for the public, kind of updated us on where are we with Nora and Pike.
Sure. Going alphabetically, Nora has been, everything is completely removed out of the interior. And when I say everything, I mean everything from the carpet to the ceiling. There are hanging wires and concrete floor, and it looks wonderful. We're cutting through the concrete to lay additional plumbing for the new individual gender-neutral restrooms. We're redoing wiring. The new exterior windows, the pre-renovation project, have been installed, and they look great. The storefront windows. And so that is trucking right along as a project. Moving on to Pike, demolition for Pike started A week ago today, they started a community room, been moving their way forward. We did, their windows, their exterior windows are also complete. We did find a few unknown leaks in the roof, but considering this was the wettest April in Indiana history, that is not surprising. So we're getting those addressed during the demolition phase rather than, waiting until everything's nice and new. So I have an owners meeting for Nora on Wednesday morning, Pike on Thursday afternoon. They happen every 2 weeks, so I'll have the most recent update then. But both projects are running along smoothly.
I thought, from facility standpoint, even though we didn't have any resolutions, we needed to get that out to the public.
Thank you, Dr. White. Very important updates. Questions, Dr. Murtado?
Just a quick one. We're updating the curve, all floors, 2 and 3, et cetera. And I keep asking about what's happening, and you gave us an extensive document that speaks to the other kinds of things that are needed at the other branches. Every time I go to some of the other branches, like West Indy, they want to have and need study rooms, et cetera. And I just keep thinking that we're doing the right things at the right time, but those other branches need to be kicked up in priority. And so at some point, not now because it's late in the day, I'd like to see how we really do kick up and prioritize those places that are dark, that have really some issues that need attending to desperately. We've done some great work at anticipating what needs to be done, but I find it to be very dismal and problematic when I look at some of the other sites, and they're not as high on the priority list in terms of taking care of those needs. I'm not talking about major renovations, but I am talking about renovations that call for serving the patrons there much more aggressively.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Mr. Parsons, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Does that conclude your report, Dr. White?
That's the end of it.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask the board to bear with us. We have worked meticulously to time our meetings. One thing we're not able to do is to know how long the public comment session will last. And so we do have a few more moments of items to cover on our agenda, so I would beg your indulgence. Our next item is the Library Foundation update. Mr. Biederman?
Yep, thank you. Every month, the foundation provides an update to the board. Foundation wants to thank everyone that attended Circulate Night at the library. It was a fun evening. I won a silent auction item of some sunglasses, so that was very nice. So I wear those every day now. So they are.
I looked at that.
Yeah, they were nice, yeah. They still are. So we're grateful to the many employees who attended and partnered to make the event possible. Excited to announce we raised more than $90,000 from the event, so great evening. And mark your calendar, May 9th, 2025. And I will be looking for every board member there. And I will be keeping a list and checking it off. So there you go. Also like to thank the presenting sponsor, Marlin Sexton, the Sexton Companies, gold sponsor, Michaela Graham, Scott Brody, and silver sponsors, Barnes & Thornburg, Stens, Indianapolis Airport Authority, and Cardinal Publishing, Blue River Press for their support. There were 253 donors that made gifts last month, including Cardinal Publishers, Downtown Optimist Foundation, Forvis, Indiana Humanities, IndyStar, and Ratio Architects. And last month, provided $180,000 to the library, including the concert series, conversation circles, On the Road to Reading, summer reading program, and teen community book club. That concludes the report.
Thank you, Mr. Biederman. Always appreciative of the foundation's support of the library. We'll move on to the report of the CEO, Mr. Gregory Hill, and I'd like to congratulate you on officially 1 year in your position as CEO. Last year,
Thank you.
Around this time, you took the helm officially, and so we're grateful for your service and look forward to hearing from you
All right.
tonight.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, Board President, board members. Before you is the monthly confirmatory resolution 2024 as related to finance, travel, and personnel matters that occurs between each board meeting. It's in its typical format. I would ask for your approval on resolution 2024.
Okay, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2024 regarding finances, personnel, and travel?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call, please.
Mr. Biedermann.
Approved.
Mr. Lane.
Did Mr. Lane sign off? Okay.
Dr. Matata.
Approved.
Dr. Palacio.
Approved.
Dr. Payne.
Approved.
Dr. White.
Approved.
And Ms. Tribble.
Approved.
Thank you.
The motion carries. Back to you, Mr. Hill.
All right, thank you. All right, I have the CEO report for April. The report highlights selected activities for the month of February, and the full report is in your board packet. The report includes selected branch programs and programming by the PDA department, also Star Awards, reception. I'll talk about the Bibliocommons use graph, goals for Q2, and an update on our goals from Q1 and other priorities. First is PDA program highlights, creative classes. NDPL offered creative classes for school-age children at 11 of our locations. Creative writing had 97 patrons, and they learned new writing techniques with Professor Watermelon, which is someone who we use quite often. Also, there was the paper art portraits. 114 patrons participated in that program. The total eclipse, PDA distributed over 17,000 pair of glasses, courtesy of the Star Library Network and Visit Indy. And I want to thank also the ELT and the board for supporting us closing on that day for the eclipse. The staff really appreciate it, so thank you. We had select programs leading up to the eclipse at select branches in partnership with NASA and the Indiana Astronomical Society. And Sakura talked about this a little bit in her presentation. Gail Gatza celebrated on March the 30th at the Central Library. This tradition is celebrated by the people of Oaxaca, Mexico. We had over 1,000 patrons who participated in this event. Patrons enjoyed performances, made crafts, and celebrated culture traditions. Tech Learning, which is one of our most popular programs, again, is the North Star Digital Literacy. We had 63 unique users in March. They completed 60 hours of independent learning and took 64 total assessments. Michigan Road had the highest number of users, followed closely by College Avenue. Basic computer skills are most popular, followed by email and internet basics. In our branches, Fort Bend had the Disability Resource Fair in partnership with the Lawrence Advisory Council on Disabilities. The Disability Resource Fair took place on March the 2nd, and it featured local resources for individuals with cognitive disabilities and their caretakers, including local services, therapy options, and resource awareness. We had 82 patrons who attended. Fort Bend also had the Model Railroad Train Show, which was very popular. It took place on March the 30th, the same day as the grand opening of Glendale. It was hosted in partnership with the National Model Railroad Association, Midwest Region, Central Indiana Division. The show drew 369 patrons, including 85 who attended the sensory-friendly hour. The Warren branch, they participated in Read Across America. Students and teachers from Lakeside Elementary took a field trip to Warren. Guests received a short tour and were treated to story time. The branch saw 172 students and 30 teachers over the 7 sessions throughout the day. The Lawrence branch. Lawrence branch had Create Your Own Solar Eclipse Viewer. They had 24 patrons who attended, and staff collected cereal boxes for the project from the community. The Glendale grand opening was on March the 30th. We had about 3,100 patrons who came through that day. Check-ins, they checked in 1,689 items. They checked out 3,320 items, and they registered 135 new patrons. In comparison with the Fort Bend opening in August of 2023, they had 911 check-ins, 3,568 checkouts, and they registered 182 patrons. Thank you to State Representative Carrie Hamilton, State Senator Fadi Cordora, Deputy Mayor Judith Thomas, Municipal Corporations Chairwoman Lakeisha Jackson, and Washington Township Board President Deidre George Davis, who participated. Thank you to the Glendale staff and everyone who worked to make the grand opening a success. Our March Star Award winners, I will go through the names here real quickly. Patron Services was Bruce Benton and Kathleen Stewart. Diane Corbin, Ellen Flexman. Peer Support was Janet Spalding, Jessica Lawrence, Chris Murray, and Lisa Anderson. Emily Chandler, Maggie Ward, Lauren Thorne, Maureen Kesters and Yates, and Timothy Vollmer. Page Excellence was the college page staff. Other duties assigned was Emily Thomas. Volunteer Partnerships was Jill Edwards on behalf of the Seed Packing Program. And Team Excellence was West Indianapolis. March was a great month for nominations. We had a grand total of 27 nominations. The Star Awards reception was held on Monday, April the 15th. The executive leadership team hosted its inaugural quarterly reception for first quarter winners in the Indiana Special Collections Room, ISCR. The reception included refreshments, photographs, a certificate, and a casual meet and greet with ELT members, Star Award committee members, and myself. And it was a great event, and staff really appreciate us having that. Real quickly, I'm going to talk about BiblioCommons. BiblioCommons is our online catalog, and it integrates with our existing ILS system, Polaris. It features searching, account integration, new tools for discovery, ebook integration, library staff recommendations, and the ability to create community around the library collection. Let me pull up my stats here. And if you just notice, there's been a big increase from 2021 to 2023. The biggest increase was quarter four from 2021 to 2023. There was an 83% increase. Our lowest quarter was quarter one. We had a 15% increase in usage from the first quarter in 2021 to the first quarter in 2023. And I just wanted to choose something that I wouldn't cut in on our Strategic Planning and Assessments Officer's statistical update. So that's just a brief update, just on BiblioCommons and the patrons who use that. Our goals for quarter two. Our goals for quarter two is the behavioral policy update. Preparations continues for staff, board, and community engagement sessions to gather feedback to update the behavioral policy. The project is being managed by John Helling, Chief Public Services Officer. Also, our business continuity plan. The business continuity plan is a strategic playbook designed to assist the Indianapolis Public Library in sustaining or swiftly restoring business operations amidst various disruptions such as natural disasters, civic unrest, cyber attacks, or any other threat to business continuity. Adam Parsons, Chief Operational Service Officer, is managing that project. The SharePoint department site, ELT is working on implementing SharePoint web pages for all departments. The goal is to get 2 departments up and running by the end of the quarter, and Shanika Hayward, Chief Innovation and Technology Officer, is managing that project. And then just a couple updates from the last quarter one. One of them was the CIP. That concluded on March the 22nd with the surveys. Those results are now being interpreted and will be given to the ELT in the next couple of weeks, I do believe. So, and then some of the added priorities is we're working on, again, the climate improvement process interpretation of the results, the good wage initiative. We are working on department head budget presentations, which will be coming up shortly, and I think Lolita mentioned that in her presentation. The annual comprehensive financial report, also known as the audit, and the customer service satisfaction surveys. Some staff opportunities, we had PLA, where I believe we had about 25 to 30 staff who attended that. And then we had an MV10K discussion group that was facilitated by our DEIA officer, Kim Ewers. And that concludes my report. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a quick one. I don't recall the discussion, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Good wage initiative, what's that about?
That's where we want to try to bring all of our employees up to the $18.
Mm-hmm. And the progress, how's that coming along?
Well, Lolita and our talent development officer have been scheduled meetings, and we're just trying to figure out a way that we can to make this happen. I think we're looking at around maybe July or August to implement that.
We'd like an update on that. I
Yes,
think that'd be
ma'am.
useful.
Mhm.
Also, just a commendation. I'm so glad that the Bibliocommons is growing and the use of it isn't fantastic. More and more people are using the kind of online resources that we have.
Yes,
And so
ma'am.
that's great. I think at some point or another, just knowing that makes a big difference in terms of the availability of the library.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes. So just want to say thank you for working on the good wages. I know this, at least I mentioned it maybe 9 months ago, so thanks for doing that.
The good wage initiative. That's what it says.
All right, thank you.
I know it's a long process, but I appreciate it.
All right.
That's great. And Mr. Hill, when you give the report, just to give, include not only our progress on it, but a little bit of context about why it's called Good Wages. We know that's a report from the famous organization whose name I cannot remember right now, but they determine what is a good wage, and they do it regionally, right?
Okay.
And so for Indianapolis, we want to give that background when we explain our approach to it.
Okay, I'll make sure I
Great.
get all that information.
Sounds
Okay, and
great.
then next is the quarter one statistical report on operations by Ms. Marianne McKenzie, our strategic planning and assessment officer.
So, Mr. Hill, I've been conspiring with Ms. McKenzie by text to ask, and I know we did this last time the statistical report came up. We had a very full night, and we have the statistical report as well as our report on the strategic planning. And I'd like to ask, if you would mind, our moving the statistical report to next month and using these next few moments to concentrate on the strategic plan. And Ms. McKenzie, you know, we do not take the work that you have done for granted. It'll give us a few more weeks to review these statistics, and we certainly want to hear from you at our May meeting. Okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, statistics don't change, they'll be there when we're ready for them, so I'm happy to revisit that in May and come back anytime you want to hear about stats, so.
Thank you.
If you can go ahead and advance to the next slide, please, sorry I didn't grab the clicker.
Go back.
This is fine. So essentially, all the strategic plan committees are in progress now. So we, of course, have our staff committee, the board committee, and our community committee. The community committee kicked off today, and you can learn about the individuals who are involved in that committee from me if you would like. I can send you some biography summaries for them. Thank you. But essentially, everything's running according to plan, more or less. The work has begun. Today, I'd like to talk with you about the members of our community committee. So we do have, and I put them in alphabetical order by first name. We have Barato Britt, the CEO of Edna Martin Christian Center, who's been a strong partner for our Martindale Brightwood community and branch. Brian Norton, who's been a strong partner with the library for several initiatives around the disability community, and he's the Vice President of Adult Services for Easter Seals Crossroad. Christina Aroma Garza, JD, the Chief Operating Officer for the Immigrant Welcome Center. Again, another really strong partner for the library. We're very excited to have her join. And then Gail Thomas Strong, who is both with WFYI, but is also on the Digital Encyclopedia of Indianapolis editorial board. We really wanted to make sure that that editorial board had representation on this committee because the Digital Encyclopedia of Indianapolis is just a growing and important project for us. Next, we have Ken Clark, Executive Vice President for Employee Indy, And Ken brings a fantastic perspective for both the job development and career services industry, but he also has a long history in the city of Indianapolis, so brings a fantastic civic perspective as well. Then we have Morella Dominguez, the Chief Marketing and Development Officer. So she's with Shalom Healthcare, who we partner with for some of our healthcare clinics and partnerships. But she also has a strong background in the Minority Health Coalition in Indianapolis. So she's a deep understanding of public health in Indianapolis, and is also incredibly active in the Latinx community in the city. So we're really excited to have her bring her variety of perspectives. Then we have Parker Landrum. She is our teen representative. She's a student at Heron High School, and she also is a library volunteer who has logged possibly more hours than many of our adult volunteers already. She also volunteers with the Indianapolis Zoo and has a deep love of literature and writing. We're very excited to have her join. And I believe a board member suggested that we add a teen member, so thank you for that suggestion. That's going to be wonderful. And then we have Suzanne Russell, librarian at Braybrook Jesuit Preparatory School, and she is representing our shared system perspective. Although she is currently with this school, she also has a background working at some other schools in the past. And she was nominated by Sarah Batt, who helps run our shared system department, because she is a strong voice for the shared system and how we can do it better. And also she is one of the librarians who's really adopted using our digital resources in the classroom and teaching that to her students. So we believe that she's going to really deepen our understanding of how schools can use that particular program more effectively. We are still in discussion with 2 additional members, so I may have 2 additional names to add in the near future, but currently this is our set of members. Any questions over the community committee?
Dr. Matata?
Just a quick one. Faith communities. While Edna Martin it's primarily a social service center, it's not so much of the faith-driven, it is a part of the community. Mm-hmm. How do we pay attention to the different faith communities? How about someone from an interfaith organization? How about that? Mm-hmm. What do you think?
We can examine that. We can explore that, definitely. I don't think that was one of the ones that we had specifically highlighted for this committee in the board committee discussions on this. We have been reaching out intentionally to faith communities in our community partner survey, but we just don't currently have a lot of active programming with specific faith communities. So I think we just didn't have the connections there to, pull a name to the front.
The reason why I ask is because one of the things that you've said so beautifully in the past is that we want to also make sure we get those who don't see themselves as using the library as much. And so how do we tap into the different voices that may, in fact, go to the different faith organizations, faith-based organizations, but not necessarily use our libraries? And so that's one of the reasons I was bringing it up. Maybe that might be
and I think that makes
approach.
Sense. One of the things that we did with this survey in particular, just you've reminded me of this context, when we looked at what languages we could translate it into, we tried to be intentional about using the languages that were used by faith communities that may not already visit the library, because we could see that some of that lack of engagement is because they've formed their own community hubs. And so we'd like to make sure that they understand the resources that we can offer them. So that's a great point.
One more suggestion. Mm-hmm. One teenager representing the youth voice is very limiting. It's wonderful. I'm glad we have a young person there. Mm-hmm. It'd be great if we had another young person. But their times are already being taxed with just doing great work in school.
Right.
But it'd just be good to have somebody, or perhaps a college student in library sciences, who's studying library sciences, mm-hmm. and like so many of our MLS students. Maybe that might be a good one to add. Just a suggestion.
Of course. And we originally did have 2 names for the high school students because we figured they might not be able to attend every meeting. Our second one, unfortunately, had to decline, but we can continue to pursue that.
I can help to connect you with someone from the library sciences, library studies. I think, Greg, you know the person who's in charge of the program. Andrea?
Yes.
Yeah. Make that connection if that's what you would like to have.
Okay. Yep. I can follow up with Gregory. Any other questions?
Just a note of thanks. You've taken a broad, thoughtful approach to engaging with diverse communities. paying attention to so many different aspects, and that's a tribute to your thoughtfulness behind this.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Coming from the digital inclusion space, that is equity work at its core, so it's been a really great foundation to build from and for this project. So, I just wanted to give you a quick update on the actual plan content. So most of the plan content will not be adopted till you're adopting the final plan, but there'll be previews along the way. So as a reminder, we have our mission, vision, and values. Many of you have had meetings with me to review that and give feedback. And so in the coming month, we hope to be kind of dialing in on what the final language for mission, vision, and values are. But what we do have coming out of the staff committee is suggestions for our strategic priorities. So the strategic priorities are those big, broad areas of focus, and underneath them we will set aspirational goals, and then we'll have objectives, which are the actions and steps we take to fulfill both the priority and goals. And currently, the preliminary strategic priorities suggested based off of staff's review of the community surveys, the existing community data, and then their own experiences and engagement with patrons is belonging, learning, and well-being. And I hope to come back to you in the next month or two with some paragraphs that help define what this means within our organization. But these are areas that have clearly resonated both with the community and with staff experiences working with the community. In particular, belonging, they like to focus on the building into the equity work we're already doing, and also thinking about how do we build community and connection, how do we address loneliness. In learning, of course, we are a place of learning, and we're focusing on literacies, so we're examining in our survey to the public what are some literacy concerns within the community. And then for well-being, we're really focusing on this is where social work would live. This is where physical and mental well-being would live. And we're also discussing whether or not perhaps financial or economic well-being may make sense underneath this category, because really we do more of an investment into community success and community prosperity than just financial literacy. So I think these will be developing into some interesting categories in the near future. Any questions on these priorities? All right, I can whiz through the rest of this because it's basically just saying, don't worry about it, we're on track. We'll be fine. Phase 1 is complete, phase 2 is partially complete. We have had some adjustments to timelines, but that was expected. So phase 2 is gonna wind down in mid-May instead of mid-April, phase 3 in early June rather than in early May. And that will mean that we'll have a little bit of a delay in our final timeline, but we had built an extra meeting in September for the board strategic planning committee, knowing that that might occur. So we'd originally hoped to deliver the final plan by August 25th, which was a board meeting week. Now we're going to be delivering the plan during the strategic plan committee meeting for delivery in the September board meeting, but that still keeps us well on track. And it still gives delivery of materials to staff to start building towards successful implementation, so I'm not worried about this adjustment. It was somewhat expected. Any final questions for me?
Any questions? Mackenzie, you have your finger on this so well. Excellent. Thank you so much for the way you're organizing it and leading us through it. Excited that we will all have the chance initially through your interviews with board members. How each of the board members is to meet with you, right?
Yes, and I've met with 3 so far, and I've sent some emails out. If you haven't been able to schedule a meeting with me, I can send you some information for email as well. And so the next month I'll be circling back to sort of fill in some additional information.
Awesome. Well, we're grateful for the opportunity to be able to leverage our board members' thoughts and ideas early in the process, and also for the way that you are feeding us the information from the other stakeholders in our library community. So great work. Keep it up, and thank you.
All right. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
if that's it, that includes our CEO report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hill, for your CEO report. We'll move on. There's no unfinished business.
There is unfinished business.
There's unfinished business.
Unfinished business. Just a point of housekeeping from last month's meeting, there are some forms that still need to be signed that some people skedaddled without signing. So let's make sure that, just check over those. None of them were me because I wasn't at last meeting, so.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's the first time we've had unfinished business. Thank you, Mr. Biederman.
You are welcome.
We don't have any new business. Move on to discussion and agenda building. This time is made available for discussion items not on the agenda that are of interest to the library board members. And we take this opportunity for them to suggest topics for inclusion on our library board meeting agendas. Are there any suggestions for the May board meeting?
I have one. I was really pleased with our follow-up on the suggestions for immigrant and refugee populations. One of the things that Fort Bend did that I think is so smart is the Disability Resource Fair. How are we attending to the issues dealing with our disability communities? And we followed up, thank you, Eugene, for following up with that in regards to our facilities work, our contracts, things like that. How do we pay attention to the diversity of the disability communities? I think it would be really worthwhile to have a follow-up there.
Specifically from Fort Bend, because they are doing that, or just in general around?
I'll leave that to our CEO to give some more thought to it. I'm not sure if it's straight from Fort Bend, but it's just struck me that they had a wonderful disability fair with resource fair with 82 patrons, and I thought that would be just something for us to elaborate on and think some more about with intentionality.
Sounds great. Okay, any other topics? Great. Notice of special meetings. There are no special meetings at this point. Our next regular meeting will be on Monday, May 20th at the Beech Grove Branch Library, 1102 Main Street in Beech Grove, Indiana at 6:30. Note that we normally meet on fourth Mondays, but the fourth Monday is Memorial Day weekend, so we're meeting a week earlier next month.
Meeting on Memorial Day.
You'll be meeting on Memorial Day. So if there is no other business to come before the board, I will receive a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Third.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.